This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Agatha All Along, Episode 3, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials.
The road will test us and our knowledge of the craft. One trial for each skill.
How do we pass them without any power?
Well, there's always analog magic. You know, labor-intensive, manual acts of magic. Witchcraft. Emphasis on the craft.
Again, who are you?
Well, I'll be. Someone's put a sigil on that boy.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to this episode of the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're here talking about Episode 3 of Agatha All Along, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials. I am one of your tricksy hosts, John.
I am your other host, Derek. Oh, John, poisoned wine. I'd be dead by the weekend.
Absolutely. The wine of poison. I wouldn't mind. It's one of my favourite wines, at least from the label.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Might be a clue for the old quiz.
Oh, it might be. It might be. For our Coven Cauldron quiz. Yes. Our next question will be coming up later in the episode. But yeah, I just kind of felt Fribus's heart there, where she'd had a bad day and got her glass of wine and just necked it in about 3.5 seconds. No judgment here.
No, well, she had about 2 at least glasses of that wine.
Well,
or should we say poison?
Well, somebody had to drink the teens' portion of it.
That is true.
Yeah. Of course, we are spoiling the episode, so I hope you've watched episode 3 of Agatha All Along. I'm sure you have if you're joining us for this episode. But yeah, this will be our spoiler-filled discussion all about the 3rd episode of Agatha All Along.
But if you haven't, make sure you get over onto Disney Plus and watch the 3rd episode of Agatha All Along. And after that, of course, pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where you can subscribe to any Wiccan or Android-loving podcast player of your choice. So you can listen to our 3rd podcast episode of Agatha All Along.
This one? This podcast?
One indeed.
Yeah, go subscribe over there in TV Podcast Industries. But we also want to hear your thoughts. Please email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts about any of the episodes so far, or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Did you like my double entendre there on Android-loving podcast player? Because obviously Vision was in WandaVision and he's an Android, and Android is a type of phone where you put your podcast player
true.
on it. There you go.
Very good.
That's the best I could do.
Still very, very good, I guess. But let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials, Episode 3 of Agatha All Along. Derek, who gave us what, when, where, how, and why?
Well, I have a few of those details. The showrunner for the show is, of course, Jack Schaefer, who was the showrunner for WandaVision. This episode was written by Cameron Squires, who wrote episode 7 of WandaVision, the Modern Family-inspired one. I'm sure you remember that one.
Yes.
Where everybody was talking to the camera. He also wrote episode 5 of The Acolyte, which is one of the best episodes of the show. That was where the big fight in there between the Jedis and, we'll say, Sith there.
Sexy Sith.
Sexy Sith, absolutely. And this episode was directed by Rachel Goldberg. Rachel, interestingly, directed episode 6 of The Boys spin-off Gen V.
Excellent.
And also directs episode 4 next week of Agatha All Along.
Excellent stuff. As always, the TV jobs and roles all intertwining and connecting in with TV podcast industries. Good stuff.
We cover the best shows, John.
We certainly do.
Well, as many as we can do.
With our best fellow defenders.
Exactly. Right, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Agatha All Along, episode 3?
Sure. Agatha Harkness informs the Coven that to reach the end of the Witch's Road, they will face trials that focus on the different branches of witchcraft. They also learn of the teen sigil that prevents any witch from learning his identity. At the first trial, the Coven finds a house with a bottle of wine, which all of them except the teen drink. Jennifer privately warns the teen not to trust Agatha, who is said to have traded her child for the Darkhold. When Mrs. Hart, aka Sharon, timer starts counting down and Jen realizes the wine has contained poison as Sharon's face begins to bloat. Under the guidance of their potions master, Jennifer Kale, they gather the ingredients to create an antidote. But the poison's effects continue as each of the witches hallucinate. Lilia Calderon sees figures reminiscent of the Renaissance era. Jennifer hallucinates a doctor attempting to drown her. Alice sees her missing mother about to take her own life following the death of her grandmother, and Agatha sees a crib containing the Darkhold. As they prepare the antidote, they notice the house is now under the ocean, with water threatening to pour in. With a few seconds left on the timer, they finish the antidote, drink it, and feed some to Sharon. As they do, water starts pouring in, but a tunnel appears, and the Coven escapes through the oven back to the Witch's Road. As they recover, believing they are all safe, the teen discovers that Sharon didn't make it.
Who's Sharon?
Mrs. Hart.
Mrs. Hart.
Sharon.
It is awful to say goodbye to Deborah Jo Rupp.
Absolutely.
From the show here. You know, she's been such a funny presence in the background, dragged along by Agatha to replace the Black Heart on the list. Had no idea.
Well, this is a kidnapping.
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent.
Tried to call the police, wondering why underground there's this whole road when she thought it was just the remnants of the transport system that would have been running in Westview. Poor Sharon. Let's raise a glass to her.
Most definitely. Like, she's been so good, just this little moment. I mean, the question, I guess, in shows like this, and given its witchcraft and spells, and, you know, how she was plucked from the garden, you know, isn't she dead? I guess you could add. I think she is dead as a dodo on this one.
And if she dies on the Witch's Road, is she really dead, or is she alive back in Westview or something like that? Yeah, we may find out, but the fact that it ended the episode with her death is a real shocker.
Yeah, it is, and it's a shame, because I'd like to have seen them all sort of continue along the Witch's Road together.
Absolutely. Who's going to be our point of view character now that has no idea what's going on with the witches?
Well, that's it, exactly. But let us get into our top 5 spells for this episode 3. Firstly, spell 1, the Trials of the Road.
Yeah, we have this kind of introduction from Agatha as they get to the road, where she tells them really that we're just going to follow what's happening in the song. And they're obviously all looking to her because she's traveled the road before. She's done this before. So she's telling them we're going to have to face the trials that are mentioned in the ballad, in the song that they used to enter the road. And it's going to be a test of their knowledge of the craft. But they're going to have to use practical magic, as the teen says, because they don't have access to any of their magics at all. Everybody here has been depowered of their magics pretty much. Nobody's used any magic yet. So they're going to have to use practical magic, which I kind of like that little touch. Yeah,
there's quite a lot of rules or witchy exposition here.
There is, yeah.
Good information. It makes sense coming on this trial. And certainly with Mrs. Hart then, I did like the obvious rule that Agatha had to point out here, which is, you know, do not step off the road.
Yes.
As we see Mrs. Hart, who's kind of really freaked out, really, getting separated from the main coven of witches, and ultimately having to tussle with some unknown sort of suction force that's pulling her handbag, as well as her, if she's not too careful, down into the ground. So I do kind of like that, you know, it's punctuated by this kind of a little bit silly, just light, nice and funny kind of obvious rule that you shouldn't leave the road.
Exactly.
Otherwise, yes, you're in trouble.
Unless you want a handbag from Talbot's.
Yes.
I had to look that up. Talbot's is like Dunnes Stores or Pennies in the US, but a little bit more upper class, aimed at people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, that kind of age group. So this would be a very prized bag for Mrs. Hart. I should have one of these it there. But it does come on the back of, as you say, a little bit of exposition as Agatha catches the audience up on why each member of the group is here, why each member of the coven is here, and she's pointing at each of them going, you know, you'll get the respect you deserve, and you'll get your powers back, you'll be unbound, you'll get to find out what happened to mommy, and then does the kind of almost Nickelodeon children's show point at the empty space where Mrs. Hart once was and says, and you, where's she gone?
Yeah.
So look, it's still a comedy show. It's still going to have those comedic moments where things happen that you don't expect to happen. So Mrs. Hart going missing to prove that you shouldn't step off the road is important to
Absolutely.
happen.
But Agatha pointing out that end goal, if they reach it to the end of the Witch's Road, comes from the fact that, again, a little bit more information around the teen that Jennifer calls out, you know, and does someone need to tell the kid's mother that where he's gone, you know, because he's coming out with a lot of information, a lot of the rules and protocols of the Witch's Road. And when they ask him, what's your actual name? You get that same markings over his mouth, and we learn here that a sigil has been placed on the teen from Lilia, who explains that it's a redacted spell to hide the teen from witch folk.
Yes.
So it's not just that it's hidden from Agatha, it's just witch kind in general.
Yeah.
This teen is kind of hidden, and they start wondering, the group, whether is this something really interesting or is this just nothing. And it's like Agatha kind of just has to recenter them to say, well, it might be just a practical joke from a witch. It could be something really exciting, but we can crack him open. You know, these sigils are beneath me, and I certainly didn't put him on the guy. It's real easy magic that we'll be able to crack open and figure out once we've got all our powers back, bringing them back to, these are the prime reasons. This is the prize for the end of the road.
Absolutely. I know this is going to be one of our spell points every single episode. I do have a point all about the teen a bit later on, but a couple of things I want to mention about this one here. So across his lips is drawn either an M or a W, so maybe Wanda, maybe Mephisto, who's bound in. That's what it looks like. Maybe Wiccan as his name. But interestingly as well, when they say he's blocked from witch folk understanding what his name is or any information about him, that's the moment when Mrs. Hart isn't there. So if Mrs. Hart was there, maybe she would have heard the whole story of who the team was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I really like. And the other one, when Agatha says maybe someone is doing it just to hide him away, somebody doing a practical joke like another witch, and then he says, why would somebody want to hide me? And Agatha stands in between him and the rest of the group, effectively hiding the teen from the rest of the group. It's a lovely little touch. So I do wonder if somewhere in the recesses of her mind, Agatha maybe has blocked the teen. She doesn't know that she's blocked him, but maybe she's blocked him from other witch kind knowing who he is. We'll talk about it later on in one of the other points as to another theory as to who the teen could be.
Loads of theories come out of Jennifer's mouth as well about who he might be. But yes, we will come to that in our fifth spell. But on to spell number 2, the Potion Master's Trial. Yes, this is Jennifer Kale's gig, effectively. This is the fear that she must face as the Potions Witch, as they arrive to this huge beach house. Looks rather nice, doesn't look anything particularly scary about it. Certainly it's better than the dark road that they're on as it goes out into the dunes and to this house. And I love that, you know, this house is the first test of a skill, and it is Jennifer Kale's skill. Large house by the sea. This is linked. So this is almost like WandaVision in an episode,
Yeah.
because this is supposed to represent the show Big Little Lies, which had a smorgasbord of Hollywood leading ladies,
Yes, it did. Yeah, it had Meryl Streep, it had Reese Witherspoon, it had Nicole Kidman, Laura Dern was in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so many amazing actresses in that show. I think it only had 2 seasons as well. So, but this is referencing
Rich
that,
people
yeah.
by the sea. This is
Exactly.
certainly a wealthy person's house by the sea.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that as they go in, on the other side of the front door, there is no door handle to open and get out. In the same way, all the windows can't be opened.
Yep.
There's a nice, interesting thing that there are the phases of the moon symbols on the door, but the main symbol in the middle of that circle of the phases is the full moon, which is the water moon.
Yes.
And as from the synopsis, the house finds itself very much in the water phase.
Yes, it does.
As it's completely submerged.
Yeah. And I also like the little touch of the teen referencing Big Little Lies, saying, this place has the sense of middle-aged woman having a second chance at love, which is
Yes.
one of the major plot points of Big Little Lies.
And they also change themselves as they cross the threshold into the house. So all their clothes change. So the goth teen becomes the frat teen, effectively.
Preppy boy, yeah.
Prep, yeah, more preppy.
Yeah.
I love that you have Alice Wu saying, "Oh, I miss your eyeliner, but your hair's really nice."
Hair's kind of cute.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, and even Jennifer gets long straight hair as well. I forgot Jennifer was bald after watching the episode until she came back out on the other side. But yes, the whole temptation here as they come in with the bottle of wine and then the note on the mantelpiece telling them this is their trial. That they have a clue that they have to work out this rhyme that's there that all of them are trying to work out. But of course, Mrs. Hart, having her really bad day, looks over at the bottle of wine, says wine out loud, not even paying attention to the fact that is the actual answer to the riddle.
Exactly. The clue reads, "My age has value.
Yeah.
I'm no fun alone. I mess with your mind. My tricks are well known." Wine.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, the wine comes at 5 glasses because the teen is underage. So this spell is a pretty good spell. It tells
Absolutely.
instantly the teen can't join you on this.
It's in compliance with the law.
It is, yeah. Which I love. Even in the Witch's Road, you have to be 21 in America to drink. So he's not allowed to have his glass of wine. And there is a reference, as I mentioned, from Agatha at the beginning of the episode where she's talking about following the ballad, following the song that they all sung together as their guide. Just had to look at the lyrics of the song. I'm not going to spoil anything about them. Look up the lyrics. There's some interesting little touches in there. But one of the things that's mentioned in there is that they will travel the road with a familiar. And Agatha had introduced the teen as her familiar Toto earlier on in the season.
Yeah.
So not a member of the coven because he's not a powerful witch, but he is the familiar of the group. So he's allowed to come on this trip along with them, even though he's not a member of the coven. And they keep calling that out as the episode goes on. He's not actually a member. He doesn't have to drink, doesn't have to take part in the trials themselves, but he's there with them on the trials. So whether that means he doesn't get a reward at the end, or whether because he's a familiar, he'll get a reward at the end, I don't know.
I mean, we'll have to see. As you say, Mrs. Hart just necks one glass, but she has 2 glasses. Agatha ultimately pours hers away, but the glass fills back up again. So she pours it into the plant pot and you see it fill back up again. And as you say, the teen has no wine at all.
Yeah.
But over the course of this, then, because Mrs. Hart is the one who has taken the first sip, as soon as that first drink is taken, a timer comes on with 30 minutes. Yeah. And she is, as they describe her, she is the canary in the mine. So she goes through all the different effects of this poison. So the first one being that her face swells up, and the rest of the coven, with the exception of Agatha, who's kind of trying to hide her face and give a lisp to when she talks, has this facial swelling.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to criticize at all because Hollywood as an industry is well known for its treatment of older women and the fact that they don't get roles other than mothers or anything like that, and they have to keep themselves looking like 20-year-olds even when they're in the 50s and 60s. But there's definitely a joke about that in here, about the facial swelling, isn't it? When we see Lilia and she has swelled lips on her face, and she's kind of going, it's not that bad, because it's there is that collagen
it's
thing.
the filler,
So,
the Botox, all that kind of
exactly
element. So you have the face swelling, which then also recedes. So Mrs. Hart is the one experiencing all these different things, and next she experiences a hallucination. We don't see it, but we see her reacting to this hallucination in front of the other witches, which is where she is seeing Wanda, and she is asking her not to hurt her husband.
Yes, it's the scene from WandaVision in the black and white episode. I think it's the first episode of WandaVision, maybe the second. I just can't remember, where herself and her husband come over for dinner, and he chokes at the table and is starting to have a heart attack, falls to the floor, and she almost breaks character, saying to Wanda, don't let him die, help him, Wanda, basically. So she's reliving that moment in her own hallucination, her biggest fear, effectively, of her husband having a heart attack in the house there. So that's her hallucination.
But ultimately, then, there are loss of motor function, but ultimately it leads to death.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing within 30 minutes.
Exactly.
So there is a countdown to find the antidote to this potion, led by Jennifer Kale.
Yeah.
So really good.
I kind of like the idea that the first thing is swelling, because generally when you have a bad reaction to something, swelling is an instant thing that happens. If you have an allergy to shellfish, your body will swell, your face will swell, and your throat will swell. So I kind of like that they chose that as the first indication that it's poison. And Jennifer, with all the knowledge that she has, instantly goes, when the swelling recedes, that this must be poison. So you would know that if you were someone that was trained in these arts.
Absolutely.
She
identifies this as Alewife's revenge.
Yes.
And so is able to then identify the ingredients for the antidote as well, which we'll come to in spell 4, because spell 3, moving on to spell 3, are the hallucinations.
Let's focus on those,
the witches go out to collect the different ingredients from inside the house, for Jennifer, they experience different hallucinations specific to them.
This is a great way of learning the backstory of your three characters that we didn't know before, Jennifer, Alice, and Lilia. Getting to know a little bit more about them, and we get to know a little bit more about Agatha as well. So Alice Wood Gulliver, she's here because her mother died, apparently on the road. So she wants to learn what happened to her mother, and we see her having a vision of her mom. Looks like she's backstage on her tour. That's the kind of way the room looks around her, and her mom tells her, your grandmother has just died. That means I can no longer protect you. And then looks like she's about to take her own life as well, at the time that Alice is there. So it's interesting, the conversation that Alice has with the teen about her protection tattoo. She says her mom made her get that because there's a family curse. There's a curse on all of the women in her family, and this tattoo would help ward off that curse.
But the teen, interestingly, spots that as well. So he spots that Alice has this symbol tattooed on her arm, and that it wards off curses.
Yes.
So it's also, he spots that and brings it up in conversation as they're enjoying the wine at this stage. So a bit earlier on. But ultimately here we see, as you say, the death of Alice's mother after telling her about the death of her own mother. So Alice's grandmother.
So this idea that the curse is kind of going after each of the female family members, it sounds like it's in order. So it sounds like Alice was protected while her grandmother was alive, but now that her grandmother's gone, then it only has to get through her mother to get to her, is what it sounds like. And interestingly, if you go back to when we met Alice last episode, she was working in the Hot Topic in the local mall, and the owner of the shop who fires her when she takes down the teen says, you've been nothing but bad luck since you've been here. So she's obviously living under some kind of bad luck curse, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why she's working in a Hot Topic when, as we say, she used to be a police officer, right? So she used to be an investigator, and then she starts working as a security guard in Hot Topic. It's not like she's retired from it and working there. So it sounds like bad luck follows her around. So maybe it's to do with this curse.
Yeah. Jennifer Kale's hallucination is really interesting one. Like, she's in the kitchen there trying to prepare effectively the sink, which is an interesting choice for to receive all the ingredients. So she's filling it up with water. But suddenly there's a man sort of dressed in sort of old almost surgical scrubs, like say from the turn of the 20th century type thing,
think
maybe
so,
slightly
yeah.
even earlier.
Yeah.
But like a doctor or a surgeon who just calls her an inconvenient woman, and who then tries to drown her. And it's kind of just a really interesting one because Jennifer says he's the one that took my powers.
Yes.
So is the surgeon, is the man in her hallucination some magic user as well, or is it that is this almost a bit like they work together and he because it's just the interesting way in which he described it as that she's an inconvenient woman.
Yeah.
Did he have an affair with her? Is it something like that? So interesting one.
Yeah, or is it that she's too powerful and overshadowing him, or something like that?
Absolutely, with her knowledge of the potions and so on. So maybe he's more like a pharmacist or something back, and she's just much better at providing those potions, pills, lotions, you name it,
exactly,
for the customers. I mean, it's not entirely clear.
No,
this is quite mysterious still. I think Alice is the most developed in terms of across multiple episodes here at this stage, because with Lilia Calderu, then it almost like she's looking at herself back in this Italian Renaissance. So she sees this young lady, very colorful, and then the next time she sees her, she's in black, wrinkled, sat down at a table with what appears to be death peering over her shoulder. And
see, I wonder if the younger version that she sees is herself and the other one is her mother or her coven leader or something like that, because the two of them seem to be in the same kind of clothes, and as we see, Lilia hasn't aged to that age, so I wonder if it's somebody else at that time. What I love about these stories here and these kind of fears and hallucinations that they're having is the age of each of these witches. They're all very old. They're all around the same kind of age as Agatha, 300 or 400 years old. So some of these experiences that they're having are from many, many years ago. So different time periods. So hopefully, like in season 1, where we saw the flashback to Agatha killing her coven in Salem, maybe we'll get a flashback to Jennifer earlier on in her time. Maybe we'll get a flashback to Lilia earlier in her time as well.
No, absolutely. And it goes to, I guess, the rules as well that we were talking about under Spell 1. It's not just that there will be a test for each of the skills, but the road itself will test the witches individually. So the team talks about it, bringing to life those traveling the road, their fears. It's also as well, the other side of this that comes from the conversation is that the coven shares both the blessings and the curses of the people in that coven. So the fact that they were all chased by the Salem 7 down into the basement and then escaped them. So they do. Lilia says the things that were chasing us are also now our problem, now that we're on the road as a coven.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, a lot of this information and the rules coming from the team. So very knowledgeable about this, very familiar, shall we say, about this stuff. So really interesting.
Absolutely. I do want to mention, though, I know that that's one of the rules they're talking about all the problems being everyone's problems, all that kind of stuff. But Agatha tries to avoid this trial completely by not drinking the wine. Until she's really pushed to take the wine on board. She really tries to avoid it. And I do wonder, since she's gone down the trail before and went down with another coven before and escaped herself at the other end, is this what she did last time? Did she just avoid all the trials and had everybody else experience them? Because these other members of the coven are all telling her, no, the trials say you must partake, but they haven't done them before. Agatha has, so maybe she did avoid all the trials last time, and that's how she got through, just by using her own avoidance abilities as she has them. Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, all the witches call it out, but it's the team says you can't cheat, drink, or I will, says the teen. And Agatha stops him and then takes the drink and says,
Yes.
oh, cheap plonk, you know.
Yes.
Um,
She's very protective of the teen in that
she
moment,
is.
I thought. Yeah.
It is. And again, it's just layering on a bit of the mystery around the teen
Yeah.
here.
But because she's
sure.
taken the wine, she also has her hallucination. I know we'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but she hears the crying of a child in her hallucination. And
Yeah.
when she goes over to find the child, she sees the Darkhold there in the crib.
And this is all a bit later on, so Agatha's symptoms all get offset because she drank the wine later.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting because Jen had told the teen, don't trust Agatha because she gave up her own child for the Darkhold, and here we have that represented in her fears that she goes to the crib of her child and the Darkhold's right there. So so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Something we didn't mention from episode 1 of the show, probably because it seemed like a bit of a trope, and it was called out by a trope by the character of Rio, who came in to visit Agatha directly afterwards. Agnes, when she's the inspector at the start, when she goes home to her home, she goes and into what looks like her son's room and looks over this empty room that's been, I suppose, maintained since that child died. So this season so far has mentioned her child quite a lot, something we didn't hear anything about in WandaVision. We didn't know much about Agatha at all, really, in WandaVision.
We also get a name in that scene
in
from episode 1.
We do,
as well.
yeah. Nicholas Scratch, that's right.
Yeah. Ha ha.
Is that just Senior Scratchy, the bunny rabbit? Was he changed into a bunny rabbit? Or here, in Jen's estimation, did Agatha actually give up her own child to get the Darkhold?
Exactly. And that's in Agatha's hallucination.
Yeah.
So it's not just that Jen is saying it or it's being imposed. That narrative is being imposed. The hallucination that the Witch's Road is showing Agatha, and only Agatha, is that in the cot of a child, presumably hers, is the Darkhold, not their kid.
Or is that just she doesn't want everybody to think that about her all the time, that this is what all the witches are saying behind her back? Is that why she has such bad relationships and friendships with other witches? But yeah, it's a really stark image for Agatha. If she's willing to give up her own child for the Darkhold, none of these witches are safe on the road.
No, absolutely. But Agatha is doing this as, and I guess moving on to our spell number 4, Jennifer is preparing the antidote.
Yes.
And this is effectively her boss level on the Witch's Road.
Her big trap,
she uses her knowledge to develop the antidote. She identifies that it's Alewipe's revenge and then sees that she needs to have a range of stuff, the gut of a new social animal, that she needs an animal that's 30 million years old, needs frankincense and Eye of Newt, all within the house, as then the witches go searching. Should say Mrs. Hart passed out after her hallucination, possibly because she's not a witch.
Yeah.
So, you've got to remember she is not like the others here in this. This is, you get that from her freaking out.
Absolutely.
So off they go. So just to say, all of these are in the house, and what you find is the Eye of Newt is also known as effectively mustard seeds. So Jennifer just collects that from the pantry. The frankincense is identified as through going to the sauna and the bathroom area of the house, where they suddenly smell eucalyptus essential oils, so get the frankincense essential oils. The animal that is 30 million years old, I really, really like this, was we need to find cosmetics with petroleum jelly in it, because the petroleum is made from phytoplankton and so on. So it's animals from 30 million years old.
Exactly.
I do like the joke as well that the products in there come from Jennifer's own beauty shop that we saw her in episode 2, which states that it's all organic. And Agatha is kind of, I know snake oil when I see it. I bet this has got petroleum in. So they take it, even though it's not confirmed until it's confirmed by Jennifer, and they put in the products into the sink.
Yeah.
And
it's a bit weird that they throw the actual bottles of products into the sink rather than actually open them up. But,
it is.
But that's just to show the third effect of the poison, the loss of motor function, because none of them are able to hold or grasp anything or hold anything.
Yeah.
They just kind of drop them in. But we see Alice Wu struggle with that as well, when she's trying to drop in the 3 drops. She can't get it open. The teen has to open the bottle for her.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And the fourth thing is the gut of the eusocial animal, which ultimately is honey.
Honey, of course.
Yes. It's just a way of saying honey.
Yeah.
You could alternatively say it's honey is bee vomit.
Well, exactly.
You know, so if you like honey on toast, you like bee vomit on toast.
I like the teen going, that's just a really disgusting name for honey, isn't it?
Exactly.
Really good. And the other thing they need hair from everybody, and they need blood of the unpoisoned. So bringing the teen along, who can't drink, was really useful, of course, because they wouldn't have had the blood.
Absolutely.
Otherwise,
so it's interesting though, because there's a lot of missteps here. So even though Jennifer actually does bring her skills together, and I do really like this moment where she doubts herself, and I really like Agatha here giving her a pep talk, really, almost, you know, a pep talk slap around the face. Say, grab a hold of yourself. Yes, I hated you, but I didn't do anything about you because I admired what you were doing as a witch. Not this beauty product range that you've got going on now, but the real stuff that you were doing for Witchkind with your potions and so on. You know this, and it helps snap her out of the panic that she's in. But there are missteps here. She fills up the sink but can't boil it. But luckily, there is the sous vide that the teen talks about because his dad has one. So there is a mention of a dad
there
here.
Is.
Interestingly.
Yeah.
But also, as we move through, they then need to get each other's hair. They need to stir anti-clockwise with your dominant hand, all these different things. But eventually they get the right color to take the antidote, which they all do. But the timer still keeps ticking down. And that's because they have forgotten Sharon.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because ultimately poor Sharon is dead by the end.
Yeah.
As they lift her body. They don't know she's dead at the time, but they lift her body into the oven to escape the rising waters. And I like that the witches go, oh, she's really heavy, because she's completely relaxed.
Yeah.
Because she's died.
I guess she's dead there already, yeah.
But there's a really interesting load of things that they've just missed. So Sharon, a lock of her hair is not put in. She doesn't hold hands with the other members of the coven to incant what it is that they intend to do.
Yeah, their intention is not to die.
Yeah.
And she's not there. Yeah. And the teen is, weirdly, but she's not there.
Yeah. She has had more of the poison. Whether that matters, don't know. But again, the other side of it is that she's not a witch.
Yeah. Yeah. But she drank it before everybody else, so she'd be feeling the effects before everybody else. I know the timer counts down to 1 second as they're pouring it into her mouth, but it gets to 0. And maybe they had another couple of seconds, so they got it a bit earlier into them before the timer went. But loads of things that happened there. Now, we may not have seen them put her hair into the potion. That may have happened just off screen, and they just didn't film it for the TV show. That's fine. But I thought it was interesting that she wasn't part of them aligning their intentions, and that she started to drink before all the rest of them did and had so much more than everybody else with two glasses, and they all had one. So there's a couple of reasons why Sharon could be the one that died here. She wasn't as involved, and they forgot about her as well. So
ultimately, that is it, and that's it. There's a lot of missteps here, even though eventually they got a successful antidote, at least cured the effects of this poison for the witches and the coven.
Yes. And importantly, Jennifer used her knowledge, which is the thing they can't take away from her. Even if they can bind her magic, she still has the knowledge that she can use to overcome challenges and trials in the future. That's kind of I would presume that's what's going to happen in the other trials as we go through Lilia's trial and Alice's trial and Agatha's trial, that they will overcome something that has been holding them back by
Exactly.
using other types of magic.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, really, really interesting stuff.
And really sad to see.
Yeah,
Sharon
it is.
go. Yeah,
Poor old Shazza.
absolutely. Poor Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon.
Or is she?
Or is she gone? Yeah, when you close out an episode of a show with someone lying dead on the ground, that's the last thing you see in the episode.
And it's got witchcraft and magic.
She could be back next episode, of
She
course.
could be.
Of course.
Exactly.
Let us compile everything we know in our final spell about the mysterious teen, because we are learning something new every episode, and I do feel like he's the big unknown.
He's the
this
conundrum.
season.
He's the enigma, the mystery here. And it's interesting in this episode. There's a lot of suggestion. Agatha having a son, swapping that son for the Darkhold,
Yep.
whether it's straight from Jennifer's mouth, as the, the gossip in a sense, the legend
Yeah.
that's there in the ether, or whether it's through the hallucination that we see Agatha have in the kitchen. But it's also just I look, the subtle moments through this episode of Agatha towards the teen, or indeed how the shot is cut and framed. When Jennifer is talking about how she used to have a son, it said that she traded it for the Darkhold. It zooms in on the teen. I love the fact that then she kind of throws multiple theories, because it's also, she wouldn't recognize him if she saw him.
She wouldn't even know her own son if he came to her door, is her actual words, and that's
Yes.
exactly what the teen did. He came into her window,
Yeah.
but he came to her house, and that is that focus point of the camera, kind of going, "Is this who it is?" Our theory of the first two episodes was that it was Billy, Wanda's son, and eventually will become Wiccan in the comic books. But that's been a theory going around for months, ever since the casting of Joe Locke, rather than the story, or rather than anything that happened to be out there in the MCU, in the shows and movies that we've seen in from Marvel directly. So everybody was going, "Oh, it must be Billy," because he looks quite like what Billy could look like if he'd aged up
Exactly.
a bit. But it is interesting that Jen words this as she wouldn't even know who her son was if he came through the door. But she also proposes one other theory that we've been that we have to talk about, of course, because it was such speculation in the first season. This is the first ever mention. She says maybe he's an demon, an agent of Mephisto. So lots of speculation back in WandaVision that Mephisto was behind it all, but this is the actual only ever naming of Mephisto in the MCU, and the Coven know who Mephisto is. So will we see Mephisto later on in the season?
Or is it just another red herring from Jennifer?
Is it just messing with you?
Yeah.
Are they just trying to mess with you? Or is this some kind of setup to the fact that the teen isn't anybody we think he is, maybe is an agent of Mephisto and is trying to tempt or trick Agatha into the hands of Mephisto? You never know. You never know.
Who knows? But seriously, a lot of hints here of a connection between Agatha and the teen here. But having said that, it's to your point around the episode 1 scene where we see her son's sort of shrined room, in effect, where we see Nicholas Scratch, potentially a son. We know the Signor Scratchy, the rabbit. So the teen may not be her son. It could be a complete red bunny rabbit. And in fact, it's Signor Scratchy has been kept around all this time because it's her son.
Yeah, could be that. Could be that. But there's another couple of things that happened in the episode, and just to pull them together into one point we mentioned earlier on, that the teen has actually talked about both of his parents in earlier episodes. So he mentioned that his mom went to see Lorna Wu, Alice's mother, in concert before Lorna died the previous year. So that's very recent, and that's something that he's talking about just very matter-of-factly. And then about the sous vide, he says his dad absolutely loves his sous vide, this thing that heats water up to allow you to cook meat to the right temperature. He says his dad loves it. So again, real casual throwaway things about his parents. So if there is a spell binding him from knowing that Agatha's his mom, or that Wanda is his mom even, he has a mom and dad that he knows loads of very normal day-to-day kind of facts about. So it seems like if there is a spell, it's going very deep.
Yeah.
You know?
But if you think about it, the whole thing of WandaVision was that Wanda created a normality for her children.
Yeah, true.
So it could, you just don't know where and how these links or new avenues are going to present themselves.
Exactly.
And as you say, then it's just Agatha getting protective of him, whether it's to prevent him from drinking the wine or whether it's just kind of some of those knowing looks, or like you say, the moving in between where she's kind of, it's figuratively is blocking his view to the other witches.
Yeah, it's let's not waste time breaking his spell. She's kind of saying to the rest of the coven, we've got other things that are more important. Let's get down the road, and when we do that, then we can crack him later. It's a really simple spell to crack. Well, if it's a really simple spell to crack, take 5 minutes and do it now and find out who the teen is. But it's like Agatha's going, I don't want his secrets to be spilled in front of all of you in case he is this son that she traded for the Darkhold. And the reason she may not know is because maybe she did trade him as a child. Maybe she traded him much younger. There's just one very interesting other line from the teen as well. When he's talking to Alice Wu about the protection tattoo that she got, she says, that happened when I was 12. And the teen responds to her going, oh yeah, a lot happened to me when I was 12 as well. That's 3 years ago. That's around the time that WandaVision happened, as we learned in the first episode. It happened about 3 years ago. So interesting that the teen's going, about 3 years ago, he's only 15, he mentioned that before. So about 3 years ago, something big happened to me, or lots of big things happened to me. And it doesn't feel like I went through puberty at that age, or I changed schools at that age. It sounds like something very big happened when WandaVision ended, basically.
Like Hansel and Gretel, there are a lot of sweets being laid on a path. Whether that is to the witch's house or whether that is somewhere completely different.
You've anticipated one of my notes for the episode. I love that when Lily has to exit the house through an oven, she goes, oh, this happened to a friend of mine. She had a lovely house before, and I think she's referencing the Hansel and Gretel story, because the way they get away from the witch is kicking her into her own oven and setting fire to her house as they leave. So I wonder if that's a little reference there. But I think that's probably enough for the mysterious team. We don't know a huge amount more about him, but we have a second theory now that it's possibly Agatha's son. Is there any other notes that you want to talk about, John, from the episode? Anything that we haven't mentioned yet? No
notes for me.
I got a couple of little ones. There's a very small joke when Jennifer tells the teen to stir anti-clockwise and notices he doesn't know what to do and goes, that's to your left, dear. And I think that's because he's only 15 years old and probably doesn't know how clock faces go, because he's seen digital clocks and digital watches more than watches. I just think that's a nice little joke. But he is massively knowledgeable about everything to do with magic. He seems to have all of that knowledge. So maybe that stuff is just things he didn't pay attention to. He paid attention to the magic stuff and not the simple practical stuff. A couple of things we just missed out in our coverage of episode 1 and episode 2. Episode 1 I'd mentioned was based on True Detective season 1 because that poster looked really like True Detective, but it's actually based on a different crime drama called Mare of Easttown, which starred Kate Winslet, in an American crime drama. I hadn't actually seen it, that's probably why, but loads and loads of people have pointed out to me since the episode was over that was definitely Mare of Easttown, not True Detective.
Fair enough.
But they all have their detective tropes, and that's kind of the joke, that she's taking all of those things from all the other shows. And one final thing, the book that Agatha's reading, that's the clue in the first episode, the one that turns out to be spelling Darkhold.
Yeah.
The writer of that book, which is a really interesting one, the writer of that book that's named is an anagram of Wundagore, which is where Wanda died in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. So she gets the book from Wundagore. So that was another clue that could have come out. But I like that.
Excellent. That's great stuff.
Excellent.
Right. So, with that, Derek, do you defend Agatha All Along, episode 3?
I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I think watching it the second and third time, I liked it a lot more than when I watched it the first time. Because the trial itself didn't stand out enough to me. I was kind of watching what was going on with all the characters and how they were interacting with each other more than I was watching the actual trial. I think the trial itself is actually really interesting. The the trial of Jennifer and how she may be able to get her powers back, even if she can't become unbound. Maybe she can lean into her magical knowledge to become the witch that she wants to become in the future. I think that's a really interesting story, and loads more breadcrumbs in here for who the teen is, which I definitely a story I want to find out what that's all about. I kind of love the brazenness of Agatha to effectively just get this coven. Last time she was going to take away all their powers so that she could fight against the Salem 7. Now that they're on the road, she's going to avoid doing any of the trials, have them all do them, and then pass all the tests and get her power back at the end of the road. So I kind of like that about Agatha. So again, having all of these characters playing off each other is a lot of fun to watch. So really looking forward to the 4th episode. Really enjoyed the 3rd episode after a couple of watches this time. So great stuff. How about yourself, John? Do you defend Agatha All Along episode 3?
I do defend this episode of Agatha All Along. I really did enjoy it. I'd give it 4 secret sigils out of 5. It felt like the anticipation of going on holiday as a kid. You know, you kind of had the lead up, and then there was the packing of the car to go. And now we're on the road, and we've just gotten to our first stop. And as I say, it's the interaction of the new coven. And I think that's why I think Mrs. Hart's death at the end hit me so hard, because I just wanted her to be on the journey a bit longer. But it's getting to know them through the hallucinations. It's the mystery of the teen. As you say, it's how Agatha is dealing with this. And I thought the interesting tell for Agatha in this episode was her pep talk to Jennifer, when in a sense it looked like the potion antidote wasn't working, wasn't going to be ready. The time's ticking down. It's a race against the clock. And you get this pep talk of the importance of what Jennifer did as a witch, how much it was significant for Witchkind, to the point whereby even though Agatha hated her, she didn't touch her.
Yes.
And maybe there's something with each one of these, and is the reason why Agatha has pulled these people in. And equally in the same way that she didn't go for the Green Witch. And that's the interesting thing. Mrs. Hart, if she is truly dead, was never a witch, and was never the Green Witch, even though you had all the Green Fingers talk outside of her house, which, you know, you kind of, maybe.
A bit of a joke,
Well, it was a bit of a joke, but at the same time, you're just going, you know, the line between reality and fantasy happened throughout WandaVision. Happened in episode 1 with the spell that Wanda put on to Agatha, is happening on the Witch's Road. They're in a reality that's changed their clothes. Completely different. So you just wonder, you know, what is going on. So I really enjoyed this. I was glad to finally be on the Witch's Road, in order to go through these miles of tricks and trials that they'll be facing.
Absolutely. There's something that just came into my head while you were summing up there, John. Going on your summer holidays and, you know, hoping that it's going to be a really enjoyable time when you're away. As they get to the house, this is terrible when you think about it. As they get to the house, Mrs. Hart looks at the door and goes, "Oh, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end of the road." And it is for her.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And the teen says to her, "Oh, that'd be really depressing if this was the end of the road," because he's excited like it is his summer holiday going the Witch's Road. But Mrs. Hart says just as she arrives there, "Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end of the road."
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was. Oh well, right. Let's get on for happier times. Let's get on to our Coven Cauldron quiz. We have a question about this episode.
Yes, we certainly do. Fellow defenders, fellow quizzers, welcome back to the Coven Cauldron quiz. It is episode 3, which means it is question 3. And it also means that there are 3 marks associated with this question.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Significantly enough.
Yeah, get your glasses
Here goes. Ready. Yes. What is the name of the wine on the table in the house? And what is the type of wine and the year?
Ooh, interesting. All in one scene?
All in one scene.
Excellent.
All on one label. Yeah. So it is the name of the wine, so like the brand name, the type of wine, and the year.
And the year. Okay, excellent. So that's our third question in our Agatha All Along Coven Cauldron quiz. We have a question for each of the episodes at the end of the season. If you email us into feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with all the correct answers, you could be given the chance of getting your hands on some Agatha goodies. John, do you want to get the question one more time?
Sure. What is the name of the wine on the table in the house? And what is the type of wine and from which year?
Great stuff. That's it. That is our coverage of this episode of Agatha All Along. We do, though, since we're recording this episode after it came out, we have some feedback on episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3, John. We're going to start out over on Facebook with Brandy Elise Anderson, who says, Herb's reply about the body of Wanda to Agatha, she's really most sincerely dead, is a quote from The Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch of the West was crushed by the house.
Yes.
Oh, very good. I didn't get that, but that's what happened to Wanda in Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. She was crushed by Wundagore, the house, effectively.
Her house, exactly.
So she is represented here as the Wicked Witch of the West.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
good stuff. Thanks, Brandy.
Very good,
for
Brandy.
that. I hadn't spotted that kind of specific quote from Herb. Yeah. Excellent. Also on Facebook, on episode 1, Salima Kisler says, solid first episode. I'm enjoying all of the through lines from WandaVision. Herb is still working on his hedges. Also, I might have to rewatch season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Doctor Strange 2. Yes, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. Give it a watch again, definitely. I'm
Definitely.
sure there's a couple of things that are in there. I know it wasn't exactly the sequel to WandaVision that a lot of Wanda Maximoff fans wanted, but there may be a couple of things in there. As for season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I hate to admit it, but they did treat the Darkhold slightly differently in that season. Connection with Ghost Rider was in there, and the Darkhold was rewriting a lot of people's lives in season 4, but any opportunity to go back and watch an episode or a season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I'm on it. I might be right there with you, Salim.
Yeah, thanks, Salim.
Thanks, Salim. Dr. Bob Phillips says, I was fully convinced we were having Agatha Vision as this season after the first 5 minutes, circling through True Detectives, romping 70s witches, demonic cottage horrors and the like as the posters were hinting at. And when the walls began to crack and our Heartstopper split the spell, I wasn't disappointed. The enemies to lovers feel of Agatha and the FBI agent flowed into the flirty fighting in Westview, and I can't wait to see how it will turn out.
Excellent stuff, Dr. Bob. Yes, it's certainly FBI and Agnes. There is a spark.
Yeah, we didn't even mention it after episode 1, but there definitely is a lot of sexual tension there between Aubrey Plaza as the FBI agent Rio Vidal and Agatha Harkness, isn't there? There's definitely some fun in there. You know, I think she even says to her, the best way I like to see is horizontal in a grave. so definitely lots of fun to be had in there.
Bad breakup.
Absolutely, yeah. Very true, very true. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob. On episode 2 of Agatha All Along, Heather Wallace says, yep, I'm in. More, please, and I'm coveting Agatha's evil Mary Poppins coat. She looks so elegant with her hair up and swirling the coat behind her. I hope that's how I'd look too if a coven of long-dead witches I maybe had a hand in destroying came to get me.
Fantastic.
Yes, always got to look your best, just
Absolutely.
in case.
Yeah, there's a great quote from Jack Schaefer about that scene. That's the scene where Agatha leaves her house and goes over next door to Mrs. Hart. She looks fantastic in her proper regalia as she walks outside. But Jack Schaefer said when she showed that scene to Kevin Feige, he instantly looked at it and said, that's just to show off her outfit, isn't it? And Jack says, yes, it was. That's exactly why we put the scene in, because her outfit's so amazing. We wanted to show it off to everybody. So totally right, Heather. I'd like that coat too, but I don't know whether I'd look as good in it as Agatha Harkness does.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. Dr. Bob had his thoughts on the second episode. He says, so this is the one they chose not to drop 3 episodes for. Why? I need the next episode. Great nods to the crew collecting of heist movies, the barely seen whispering wraiths of ghost stories, and in-frame animation of Heartstopper, perhaps, and another retelling of the Oz story with witches leaving their shoes at the start of a pale stone path to destiny. Oh, and the titles credits sequence, masterpiece in itself.
Yeah, excellent stuff, Dr. Bob. Yeah, because actually interesting on the... Well, I was thinking of the end credits. Mm-hmm. You see Lisa Simpson as a witch,
yes.
And you have the Disney witch, the classic one from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
You have Fraser Bulk from The Craft is in there as well.
So really, really good stuff. oh, how to be tied to a massive multinational conglomerate of Disney,
Well, yeah.
Marvel, Fox.
Yeah, but they do have loads of other stuff. They have Ancient Verses of Witches in there as well, but there's loads of ones from pop culture. There's even the one from Bewitched that I think was used in WandaVision last season when there was a bit of a Bewitched episode. But
they have those like medieval texts as well,
That's
or
right.
so they have a bunny and a cat playing the lutes.
Well, there you go. Interesting. I didn't see that one, but there's so much in there. Probably could talk about just the credit sequence. But really loving that stuff that they've got in there. Great stuff, Dr. Bob. Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be a bit more of Wizard of Oz in the show as we go along as well.
Oh, definitely. As well, of course, as Big Little Lies, as we discussed today.
Well, absolutely. What's next week's episode going to be, John?
I do not know. Because actually, I wasn't really expecting this kind of. Just the whole theme, the way it's being done. So it's really caught me pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it. But thanks again, Dr. Bob. Brandy Elise Anderson on episode 2 says, I think the lock of hair is for Agatha's son, Nicholas Scrat.
Very good.
There's a history of keeping locks of hair for mourning. Agatha has a visual reaction to seeing it, and later in a scene is looking at it again. We had the scene with the child's bedroom in episode 1, and in episode 2, Jennifer Potions makes a comment about a child sacrifice, which Agatha has a similar visual reaction to. Which is why my theory is that Agatha lost her son the last time she walked the Witch's Road, and some might, wrongfully I think at least, believe she offered him as sacrifice to get the power. Or see it as her sacrificing him by bringing him along in her quest for power. I feel this is more likely.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, thanks, Brandy, because that might explain why she's being protective of the team. She remembers what happened
last time.
Yeah. Oh, excellent stuff. I love that theory.
Like it, Brandy.
We do like theories on Defenders podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brandy. We also got an email in from Coffee and Vodka who talked about just the first 2 episodes in his email. He says, greetings, fellow spell-sprung Defenders. After weeks of hype and 9 months without a series, if Disney doesn't want to count Echo, neither will I. Agatha finally hit the small screen. Throughout the first episode, it was hard not to compare Agatha to Esther Finch and have Miss Harkness come up a bit short. By the end of episode 2, however, I was ready to rob a bank to fund a miniseries with these 2 equally wonderful witches. Her flat performance during her spell state perfectly illustrated her place as the puzzle piece that didn't fit. When freed, she came back into her own and reminded me why she was the best part of WandaVision. The rest of the cast also shined, and I just about cheered into an empty room when Deborah Jo Rupp joined the crew. The writing was phenomenal, with more than a few bits I wasn't expecting from a Disney production. Pelvic floors, anyone?
Well, exactly.
The 2 installments were over before I knew it, leaving me wanting more right now. That's about all you can ask from a show. So far, so perfect, or by leaving Mephisto behind, almost perfect. Favourite standout was David A. Payton's Herb, comedy gold. Finally, do you think Wanda is as dead as the Darkhold? 5 skittish mares, sisters of the travelling toes, and moons over Westview out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and Vodka.
Excellent Coffee and Vodka. You'll be pleased to know the Mephisto saga continues in episode 3.
Yep.
He is back. He is influencing all our thoughts and dreams. He is the devil.
Well, we did mention that the Dark Heart that was drawn in the first episode by Lilia, Dark Heart, was a minion of Mephisto. And here it's called out maybe her child became a minion of Mephisto. So there you go.
Who knows? Who knows?
Could be it. But yes, do you think Wanda is as dead as the Darkhold? It's a really good question. I know Marvel would be silly to be as definitive about it as the show is trying to make you think they are. I think it's entirely possible that they'll find a way for Wanda to come back. So I'm not sure if Wanda is dead, but she did have an entire mountain dropped on her in Multiverse of Madness. So maybe that version of Wanda is dead. Maybe she got herself out of there before that mountain dropped on her. But I do suspect that we'll see Elizabeth Olsen back playing the character, most likely in it's not actually called Vision Quest, but in Vision's own TV show coming up, if we don't see her by the end of this series and Agatha All Along for a quick moment, we'll probably see her in Vision Quest, which is coming out, I think, in 2026, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, no, I
2025,
kind of
actually.
feel as though Wanda is dead for the time being. And so not dead, but I
Yeah.
do think...
But Marvel dead.
But Marvel dead, and I think whether... It's one of those things where I think, you know, there's a really good story here that through Wanda Vision, through the Doctor Strange, but also through you know, the Avengers. And so I'm kind of happy where it is. So if they want to explore other members of Marvel's magic community, whether that is Mephisto, whether that is Brother Voodoo, you know, all those, I'd love to see that as much as anything else. I mean, even just with Agatha, really good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brother Voodoo would fit in really well here, you know, Morgan Le Fay, but equally, you know, the Hood as well, that's coming up in one of the shows. Again, love the Hood.
That would be cool. Also, and you might like this, John, since Doctor Strange didn't stop what happened with Wanda in WandaVision, do you think he might turn up here? To deal with Agatha if she returns back being super powerful? Would Benedict Cumberbatch suddenly appear at the end of this season going, I let Westview out of my sight once, I'm not doing it again?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
But I know that Agatha, you know, there's been a number of tales with Agatha and Stephen Strange, but I'm not too sure, to be honest.
I think it'd be really interesting if we
It
see.
would. I'd love it.
If we see executive producer credit for Benedict Cumberbatch, then he's definitely turning up on the show.
No, absolutely. Would love to see Stephen Strange in Agatha All Along. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for that coffee and vodka.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Let's move on to episode 3 feedback. We're recording the same day as episode 3 came out, so we have a few bits of feedback over on our Facebook group.
Yes. Doug Green asks, plot twist or red herring involving that fact we learned tonight with Agatha's past, trading her child for the Darkhold. Yes, interesting. I think Brandy's theory here is where I'm heading on this. I think that sounds... I think it is a legend that has developed around Agatha.
Yeah.
But ultimately... she did lose her child by bringing the child along the witches.
I think that's a good
I
theory.
think it's a really good theory.
Yep.
Thank you, Brandy.
It's a really good theory and a really good twist, potentially. But I do like the idea that behind Agatha's back, all the other witches think she handed over her child for the Darkhold, and maybe that's playing on Agatha's mind. Maybe that's why she separates herself and doesn't have a coven, and hasn't had a coven for a very long time, because all these other witches are going, she'd even trade in her own child for more power, you know, as I even said myself, if that's what she's willing to do, and that's what Agatha actually did, nobody's safe around Agatha. Don't trust her, right? So,
Yeah.
So maybe that's just part of it, that this isn't actually what happened, this is just, what everybody's been saying happened to Agatha's son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks so much, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Heather Wallace on episode 3 says, no, not Sharon. She is my spirit animal. I'm absolutely the person who comments on cardstock and reaches for the wine. I also love the background conversation about watching huge, tiny lies. I don't see how the potion worked without a strand of her hair, as she's part of the coven. I think there is more to her than meets the eye. The entrance to the road appeared when she noticed it last week. Ooh, you see? Maybe she's not dead. Maybe we'll see Sharon
But that's
back.
it. I think there's a lot of kind of possibilities here. And I mean, even just with her death, you know, she doesn't have her hair put into the potion, don't hold the hands, but equally, is she a part of the coven? I mean, that's because she's not a witch. Okay, maybe these rules are yet to be defined by the show, but at least for the time being, I'm taking it that she was mortal.
Mm-hmm.
She got into something she didn't know the consequences of. She thought she was going for a party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the whole point of her saying, you know, this is a kidnapping, trying to phone the police, she realizes this is not where she belongs. Unless it's real good subterfuge, whether she is Mephisto in plain sight, you know, some kind of big bad. I think I'm at the moment taking it that she's dead as a dodo.
I'm taking that way. I think because Agatha dragged her along with them. Without it protecting her, without taking care of her. We saw that really early on in the episode. She disappeared without them even looking for her. The witches should have protected her. And Agatha was taking her along to cover up for something. The real Green Witch that Agatha clearly didn't want to take with them. So, I have a feeling I know who that is, but we'll see next episode, so I'm not going to spoil it. Finally, Paul Tenchi Lee says, they said the name Mephisto is now in the MCU. Also, it looks like they're still going with some amount of TV show parody, but with a horror twist. I feel like I might end up having homework before the season finishes. I've seen all of season 4 of True Detective, but I'm only a couple of episodes into season 1, and I've only seen part of the first episode of Mayor of Easttown. Do I need to watch some Big Little Lies now? Sad to lose Sharon, but that does open up room for Rio. I love that Teen has his notebook out and writing down the ingredients as Jen calls them out. Nice character continuity.
Yeah, excellent stuff.
Do you know, there's that moment when they all get their clothes as they go in, and who is it? Alice, I think, checks that she has all of her protection medallions that she's wearing. She makes sure that she has them still on, even though she's changed outfit. And actually, if you look at the Teen, he's got his notepad strapped to his belt. Even though he's changed outfit completely, he's still got his notepad hanging off the side. So they allow you to keep the important witchy things, even though they'll give you brand new outfits.
Yeah. Well, as Paul Daniels said, that's magic.
That's magic, exactly. Great stuff. Thanks, Paul. Oh, we got a few little extra pieces of feedback in just after we recorded. John, we got an email in from Coffee and Vodka.
Yes, we did. Coffee and Vodka says, greetings, fellow exit stage oven defenders. A well-produced, half-hourish, semi-bottle episode resulting in the death of one of the co-stars I'd hoped to see make it through to the end. Agatha owes me a rup. If this is the formula going forward, test, humorous tension, and another one bites the dust, then it's going to be a long haul. On the flip side, great performances, and Mephisto was mentioned by name, so there's hope. 2.5 baby books, corkscrewed covens, and scarlet sigils out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. Interesting Coffee and Vodka. I think that's one of the lowest ratings I've seen from you. Okay, it's still 50%, but hopefully, yes, the formula going forward maybe is mixed up a little bit. I'm sure it will be, although I do suspect we will have the tests of each of the witches, including Agatha, and the up till now mysterious Green Witch, which they don't have, interestingly, on board. So the Green Witch test will be a toughie.
Well, yeah, and especially if Mrs. Hart was the Green Witch and they don't have one there.
Yeah, so, exactly.
What will happen? Will Agatha have to step up and use a completely different power, even though she's the Purple Witch, as we have come to know her, or will somebody else take her place? But I do think you're right, though, John. I think there is going to be the test will form the center part of the episode, and similar to WandaVision, the first 6 episodes or so are going to take that form of the test, like we've seen in this episode being based on Big Little Lies for the test. The next episode may be based on something else for the test. You know that.
And I mean, I do hope that, each of the witches don't sort of fall one by one after each of this. But I mean, certainly if they do, well, then the tests are just going to get harder. So I guess it does ramp up the tension and the anticipation, really, I think, for what the test will bring if they lose witches that should be doing that test.
Exactly. But just like yourself, Coffee Vodka, I hope it doesn't fall into a trope of this is exactly how every episode is going to go. That would be really boring to watch if that was the case. But after Jack Schaefer's work on season 1, WandaVision, I think I can trust her for a few more episodes to see how she builds this story out and expands it as it goes on as well. So there's probably going to be some major twists in there, I'm sure. Thanks, Coffee Vodka. And finally, we got some feedback in from Dr. Bob sharing his thoughts on the episode as well. He says, escape room with a deadly twist meets 70s family sitcom and all the horror film hotels sprinkled with the joy of arcane language to elevate those in the know. What a bottle of an episode to have fun in. Nice to find the teen is silenced for all those watching, not just Agatha, and that having a wide vocabulary for colours might one day come in handy. Key reminder from this episode is to always clear the landing pool at the bottom of a water slide or you'll end up with a corpse slapping you on the head. Oh, Dr. Bob.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the colours that were mentioned here, because I think half of them I was like, Nah, I don't know those. I mean, I can extend to teal and lavender and things, but yeah, there's not much scope in, I guess, my life or my line of work that requires something that sounds like charcuterie.
I think if we were repainting all of our walls very often, we'd get to know those kind of colours. But
Maybe
I do like Alice kind of going. I get confused between these two colours. One's green and one's blue. Which one's green?
Maybe, but these days colours are things like, sandstone yellow or, like duck egg blue.
Yes.
So they don't even mean some of these sort of colours that actually are colours.
No, they don't.
Or it's like nutmeg brown. So, I mean, even colours sort of just don't mean what they say on the tin.
Exactly. You can just give you an indication of what you might see, and even then, they may not look the same on the wall as they do on the tin.
I mean, the only reason I'm getting slightly wound up with colours is because we recently repainted some, dare I say it, feature walls,
We did.
which had a particular colour which was no longer being manufactured, and trying to find a similar colour that matched took a while.
It took ages.
Let's
and
just
then
say
even when I painted the walls, it's still not exactly the same, but it's good enough.
It's close enough, close enough for us. Exactly.
Anyway, enough about our walls. Thanks so much, Dr. Bob, for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Bob.
And thanks everybody for your feedback. If you want to get in contact with us, please keep emailing us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Can't wait to come back next week for Agatha All Along episode 4, If I Can't Reach You, Let My Song Teach You, which airs on the 2nd of October on Disney+.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow defenders, for joining us. Of course, please stay subscribed to the podcast and share the podcast, because sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the
witchy love.
Absolutely. You can also support us over at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries or over at buymeacoffee.com/TVPI.
Absolutely, yeah. We love when people share the podcast with other people that are watching the show, because it's always fun to talk about a Marvel show together, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We are talking about loads of other stuff as well. We're talking about The Lord of the Rings of Power, which the penultimate episode came out the same day as this episode, so we'll be around recording our podcast for that in the next couple of days. And also the second episode of The Penguin, our return to Gotham from our Days of Gotham TV podcast. That's coming out on the 29th of September as well. So lots of great TV show. I was saying to John the other day, we're absolutely spoiled for loads of great premium quality TV that we're able to talk
Definitely.
about at the moment. Just so good. And thank you to all of you for joining us for all those shows and sending us your feedback as well. It's great fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, fellow defenders. As always, until episode 4 of Agatha All Along, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep stirring that cauldron.
Clockwise, which means left. Bye.
Bye.